This is a very heroic time to be chosen to walk a shamanic path. I say heroic because there is great challenge. There's a lot of challenges. And those who are chosen to walk the path have to rise up to them, have to meet them, have to overcome them. We all face different difficulties on this path. Some of them are linguistic. Languages that have forgotten all traces, all markers, where it's been completely eradicated from the language, or where you've lost track of the original language. This is a barrier. Recovering ancestral practices that were lost to colonization, to Christianization, to zealousness. It doesn't matter what your nationality is, where you are, what color your skin is. We all have an ecstatic, magical practice in our ancestry. Shamanism is a convenient label in English. It's not originally from English, of course, but it's a convenient label for English speakers to use to label a practice that in its variant forms can be seen all over the world. It's different everywhere you look in the world. The shamanism of one group of Neanderthals would have been similar but variant from the shamanism of a different group of Neanderthals, and that would have been different from the shamanic practices of Cro-Magnon man, more modern humans in our native indigenous settings. The ecstatic magical practices that we would call shamanism, which we have scant evidence to hang on to and piece together like a shattered pot in Northern European indigenous settings, is drastically different and yet oddly similar to what we see in different places and of the first, where we see it with the First Nations people. And then, of course, people, they see the similarities and they think, oh, it's all one, but it's not. These different traditions are unique, each of them, each rooted in a unique culture. And I think it's normal for English speakers with no language markers to lead them down the ladder of ecstatic practice with only shards of spiritual practice, just remnants left over, to want to cling to something that's already established in some way or another. And that's why you get what different communities of people call plastic shamans or wannabes or any other derogatory label you want to use to describe people who pick and choose. I'm not going to apologize for those who pick and choose, who practice cultural appropriation, but at the same time, I do understand where it comes from. For some people, the barrier of doing the research, of doing the practice, of going out and communing with spirits in an ecstatic way is daunting. It's daunting to such a degree. The idea of carving your own path through the ashes of what's been lost is daunting to such a degree that they think, well, I'll just go to a class, and in that class they'll teach me how to drum, they'll teach me how to do a guided meditation, they'll tell me some obscure and possibly wrong facts about different animal-human relationships, mythological relationships, from a smattering of First Nations tribes, some of which may not even be rooted in there, but someone picked it up somewhere in a book, forgot half of it, mixed the other half together, and then put it out there in a class or in another book or in a paper, and said something that later on gets regurgitated by somebody who hasn't walked the path very long. That's where the problem is. To walk an ecstatic path, you have to be chosen. And that doesn't mean that it won't happen if you only want it. You can want it. You can put the word out, in a sense. You can put your feelers out. You can open yourself and say, this is what I want. But be prepared. You open those doors, and you are opening yourself to a whole nother way of existence in which your issues, your worries, your thoughts, your fears will come out of the nothingness and manifest directly into your face, because in order to be someone who helps others with their work, you have to do your own work. And that is the very nature of this rawest, most primal form of spiritual expression. That's why I call it ecstatic. It's spontaneous. It's more about trusting yourself and your inner being than it is about following what someone else has written. So you pick up a book that says, coyotes are tricksters. According to who? Dig deeper. Why are you drawn to coyote in the first place? Why are you drawn to tricksters in the first place? Who wrote that book and who informed them? How deep are you willing to dig? And in the end, does it even matter? Or is it better to just go into the backyard and look at the little scrub jay that's been hanging out on your fence and say, you know, he comes by every day. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's something there. And then, after that, it's all about dedication. Dedication to walking your path, to knowing yourself. For me, I use the term shamanism for my own path because it's the only word that is widely recognized in English. It's a word that has a storied history. It's a word that shows up in the news in negative ways, and then other groups of people come along and denounce it and say we have nothing to do with it, or say that's horrible, or say that's awesome, and it just gets really heated and crazy, and people will cling to the label without any knowledge of what's going on, without doing the work or going in a totally different direction. They'll cling to it because in English, in a Northern European, specifically Germanic, and I mean Germanic as Western Europe, Northern and Western Europe, the movements of people, Germanic, Celtic, Nordic. So much has been lost. There are terms, but they don't always work. They aren't always recognized. If you meet someone in the street and you try to tell them who you are, what you do, and you say, oh, well, I'm a Sademan, or I'm a Volfa. Most people have no clue what you're talking about, but say you're a shaman, oh, they'll give you a podium. They'll give you a microphone. They'll ask you, because everybody knows what a shaman is. Our work as shamans, rediscovering and revitalizing the ecstatic practices of our ancestors, of our deep ancestors, have these huge and wonderful challenges before us. We're equipped to move through them. We're equipped to overcome them. We're equipped to quash the self-doubts, the lack of self-confidence that may rear its head. We're equipped to rediscover and revitalize and practice the traditions of our ancestors as a separate and living and unique series of similar but individual practices that vary from person to person, as it was when, as they say, every man was a priest. This level of dedication This dedication to the research, to the path, to going back to the roots. This is what separates what are called plastic shamans from the people who do the work. This is how we, as a community, as a greater pagan heathen community, begin to heal the divide between us and others that was caused by massive cultural appropriation and lack of respect. This is how we heal that divide and stand on our own 2 feet with our own traditions, recovered and lifted up by our own hands. And at the same time, we have to stop and look at where the terms we have used come from. These are the rungs of the ladder down into the depths. We have to look at these rungs and respect them and honor them and say, yes, I know where the term shaman comes from. Thank you, because I would have had no clue about my ancestors' lost practices if someone hadn't said that word to me, if someone hadn't brought that word back. I would have had no idea about how energy can be focused in the body if someone hadn't shown me the word Reiki, if someone hadn't shown me the word chakra. I would have had no idea about how the soul or the elements of the soul can go from one place to another if I had never heard the word reincarnation or karma. These concepts are distant from our ancestry as Northern Europeans, people of Northern European ancestry, people who connect with the Northern European ancestors regardless of their nation, their blood, their heritage. I don't care what color your skin is. If you feel called to Odin, the people of the North are your ancestors as much as they are mine. And that is my stance, absolutely. We are all kin. We are all related. My research into DNA has shown me that more clearly than anything else. But still, it is important to recognize where the terms we use to get down into our depths come from, and honor them, and tell them thank you. Tell them thank you, and then we can prove our own terms. We can make them living terms again, known terms again, so that when you walk down the street and someone says, hey, that looks like a vulva, people will know exactly what you mean. They'll see it. They'll recognize it. And the vulva or the shaman or the seidman will know that other people see it too, and that they don't have to use terms that they've borrowed from other languages anymore.